Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Bago ko po simulan ng homily, gusto kong sabihin sa inyo na may nagko-celebrate kasama ko, a parish priest ng Mary Help of Christians Parish sa Malapok, Maasin, Malapok Norte, Maasin City, Father Alfredo Briones. I have never asked you for any donation or any fundraising. I have no right to do fundraising. And the last time I asked you to give something was when Reverend Anthony Valens last year was going back to Myanmar. So I would like to ask you if you could spare a little help to him, give it to him directly. For the church was destroyed significantly by Typhoon Odette last year. If you can give more, I'll be in Maasin on November 21 to 25 to do some formation work with the young clergy. So you might want to give it to him directly today or send it through me. Okay, thank you very much. I don't ask you for money for my fundraisings, but I couldn't quite help the church directly because I was busy helping the other chapel that we are still building in Maasin also, St. John Bosco Chapel, and also the victims of the 3 landslides. So that's it. Okay. Sa mga pagbasa po natin ngayon, narinig natin ang mga kagimbal-gimbal na bagay, kahindik-hindik. They all have to do with endings. And the images are frightening. You talk of fire, you talk of oven, you talk of everything will be stubble. But then the first reading from Malachi ends as usual with good news. And it ends with the idea of the sun, araw, the sun of justice, coming to reign over a world in pain. In the second reading, we heard St. Paul talking about not losing time worrying about endings. But for St. Paul, endings were beginnings. Endings were a call to do something great, a call to be busy, not just being a busybody, a call to do what you can in order to fashion a better world. It talks about toil and drudgery. It talks about work. It talks about preparation, ordering our lives for the good of humanity. The Gospel from Luke again takes up what we call apocalyptic language. Apocalyptic language is not meant to be understood literally, but they are meant to heighten reality. And what is this reality we're talking of? We talk about cosmic ends, we talk about cultural ends, we talk about personal end. Let's start with the third, personal end. Lahat tayo may hangganan, lahat tayo mamamatay, lahat tayo may katapusan, lahat ng magagandang bagay may hangganan. What about cultural end? I leave this for the last, so I'll go to cosmic end. The end of the world as we know it. The world as we know it is fast drifting away. And you know this very well. Pasig River wasn't always like it is now. I almost drowned in the Pasig River in 1963. Wasn't quite grade 1 yet. And I know what I'm talking about. In 1963, a fresh migrant from the boonies of Cavite, I saw a lot of fish in the Pasig River. But Pasig River is dead for many, many decades now. Endings. Now, the whole liturgical celebration for today, 33rd Sunday of the year, and next week will be the last Sunday of the liturgical year, we talk about endings, but not necessarily only about cosmic endings. Not necessarily only about personal end or personal endings. It also talks about cultural endings that are happening even here, even now, everywhere around the world. The ending, somebody wanted to end Ukraine in 3 days. And he thought, given the lies of his generals and people around him, his cordon sanitaire, telling him all packs of lies. I think that Russians are the most capable liars in the world right now. Communism is a big lie. And the communist nations, socialist nations, totalitarian nations have always been living a lie. That doesn't mean that the democratics are also not liars. We also lie. Our government has always been falling short, not only of the glory of God, but falling short of all our expectations. Our leaders disappoint us. Your family members disappoint you. I just came from a processing seminar with young seminarians, and I know that the stories they are telling every year, every time I handle this, is that they are disappointed by their father, their mother. And in their object representation of their mothers, they are people whose mother, they don't nurture. A mother whose mothers behaving in their interpretation more like monsters. And it has nothing to do with their mothers, it has to do with their faulty object representation of their early experiences with a mother who they thought smothered them. My dear friends, today we talk about endings. And when we talk about endings, let me give you this story of John Rockefeller. John Rockefeller became mortally sick at about 50 years old. And when he, being the richest, the first billionaire in America, having established Standard Oil at 20 years old. So at 50 years old, he was on top of the world. His earnings, his assets constituted about 3% of the GDP of the whole entire United States. But he got mortally sick at 50. And he was told that he was not gonna live beyond 53. He saw his end. And he wrote his desired ending. One of the activities that I do with growth and wellness seminars with groups is that I make them do what I call the desired ending process. I let them go, I lead them to an imaginary journey and lead them to the most painful event in their life, or a series of painful events that gave them the desire to end their lives. And then I let them imagine their desired endings. And after the session, all of them always come out with better ideas about how to live their lives. They found it in their heart. And what is this? Endings are beginnings. The end of the world is not the end of the world. The end of the world that Malachi and the Gospel of Luke is talking about has nothing to do with cosmic endings. It has to do with you ending all hope, ending all optimism, ending all desire to become the better version of yourself, ending all belief that things are bound to get better, ending all desire to become the solution and to cease being part of the problem. The end of the world is not the end of the world. When you have faith, when you have hope, when you have love, when you desire to live your desired endings. If you are overtaken by the reality that China is supposed to take Taiwan before the end of 2025, when you are beset with the idea that the Ukrainians don't deserve to have a nation, they don't deserve to live as an independent nation, they are part of the Soviet Union, And boy, everybody now in Russia wants to recover that lost horizon, the lost world of the USSR, with all their capacity to lie and to step on people's rights and people's freedom. When we say the end of the world is not the end of the world, when you have hope and faith, then happen what may, happen what might, you can be in a world of pain. You can wake up one fine morning and your blood sugar shoots up to the ceiling, and you suddenly find that you have cancer. Like John Rockefeller at 50 thought he was dying, and he was. But then he charted a new ending for himself. He became the best version of himself, and he decided to make his endings beautiful, happy endings. And so he began to be a philanthropist, and he helped establish the University of Chicago. And in case you don't know it, he established the Central Philippine University in Iloilo. He gave a huge grant and established in 1905 the Central Philippine University in Iloilo. What am I talking about? Tell me your stories. I have cancer, I have high blood pressure, I have diabetes, I have a lot of problems. Children do not respect me. I am a pariah. I am not accepted. I am rejected. All sub-stories. Your world is ending. Your personal life is ending. But today the story is that the end of the world is not the end of the world. The end of the world happens when you end hoping and looking forward to great realities promised by God. What did John Rockefeller do? He began, towards the end of his life, he changed his endings, his desired endings, and he died at 98. He didn't die at 54. He died at 98. He made a desired ending in his life, and it was to do good. So tell me, who among you has no problems? Who among you has nothing to resolve? Who among you is grieving over the loss of beloved ones, one after the other? Who among you is not grieving over losses because of the 3 years of the pandemic? The end of the world is not the end of the world. The end of the world happens when you cease hoping, believing, and loving. Today is really not a story of endings, cosmic endings. It's a story about cultural endings. Pasig River is dead. There is war in the Ukraine. And they will go back even if they said liars they are. They said they surrender her son, but they will be back another day after they get a lot of money again from oil and gas, after they fool the rest of the free world. When we lose interest in fighting for what is right. The end of the world is not the end of the world. Talk about endings. Make them beginnings. And begin forging a new existence and a new world and a new life with faith, hope, and love for a God whose promise is, I will be with you for all times. I am the Alpha and the Omega. Don't worry, God is still with us.